fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Six very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Thursday nights in America, Friday mornings in Australia. It's a fantastic Friday morning for us at SimSpeed for the Geodesic GoPro Championship, the Sprint Championship of 2020. Multi-class GT racing coming to you live from many fantastic sports car racing tracks around America, around the world. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box is David Haynes, and we are at Virginia International Raceway for round 3 of the championship. A very foggy Virginia International Raceway. Currently in sim, it's about 11:36 a.m., so the morning fog is still clearing here on the South Carolina border. But David, we've still got GS qualifying going at the moment, and Virginia, quite the narrow track. It's going to be interesting for multi-class.
Yeah, g'day, Reese. It certainly is going to be, but it's certainly a track with plenty of history of some GT racing. Of course, IMSA come here in their GT-only format every year as well, so GT3 cars will definitely feel at home here, as will the GT4 cars that make up our GS class. Two classes in this championship. GT class have already done their qualifying. We'll check back in with them in a little bit of time, but GS are underway for their qualifying right now, and Brian Lockwood, who grabbed the lead on the last lap of the last race last time out, well, he's currently got the best time on the board. Much better qualifying effort than last round, it must be said.
Yeah, certainly. And if you hadn't seen that last round at Barber Motorsports Park, we do encourage you to have a look at the video on demand after we're done with this today, because it was certainly an exciting race with a fantastic finish, and it certainly showed how much the racing can scintillate in this championship. But Lockwood doing very well at the moment there on pole position. And this track, well, there's an awful lot of turns for 1, an awful lot of elevation change for 2, and an awful lot of grass for 3. And as some drivers are finding out at the moment in the qualifying session, one little mistake can absolutely ruin your lap. In fact, in GT qualifying just before, we saw Robert Harris, who has returned to the championship after a bit of an absence from the first 2 rounds this season. He was on for a quicker time, but he got off into the grass out of the last corner, and from that point, there was no recovering it.
Yeah, certainly, as we ride on board with Lockwood here, it gives you a good view around this circuit. It's been here in south of Virginia for quite some time, and it has not changed much at all over the years. There's still hard curbs, narrow track, a lot of undulation up and down, some difficult corners, some difficult braking zones, especially in these GT4 cars that have basically nothing to speak of for downforce. Got the climbing S's here, heads towards South Bend, which is very, very committed here, and the track immediately drops away, makes the car want to oversteer, and then Oak Tree, where it just slows down, it keeps tightening. There used to be a beautiful oak tree in the center of that apex, but your exit is so critical, because this is where I think a lot of our overtaking will happen, a lot of our racing will happen. This very long, undulating back straight. Cars get up to a lot of speed here before they head to the corkscrew, which is roller coaster. Quite a difficult corner, unsighted, curved braking zone, and well, as you can see, barriers right there on the outside, trees to one side, and lots of spectators on the right-hand side of the circuit there. Good thing that they're virtual.
Yes, very good thing that they're virtual, because One mistake at those kinds of speeds will send you absolutely flying into the woods. So Brian Lockwood coming through the last corner then, and sticking all the way to driver's right, shorten the run to the start-finish line, and is that going to be a consolidation of his pole position? Yes, it is. 54.837, and these are some fantastic times we're seeing in qualifying. Nobody got under a 1 minute 55 in practice, so it's a good run there for Ryan Lockwood and Racecraft Esports. His teammate Justin Tipton is certainly looking to improve as well, coming across the line, and looks like, yes, up to second place for him. So a Racecraft Esports 1-2 for now. Good stuff.
Yeah, checkered flag is out on this qualifying session, so quite a few cars still out there on some flying laps, looking to improve, and definitely seeing that out of these cars. Hello, Luke, with your flashing headlights there. Big Bone Racing, he's going to look to improve as he comes across the line as well. But definitely you see lap after lap, these cars keep getting quicker as they get the pressures to where they want them to, and as a little bit of the fuel burns off. Definitely not a car that you can come out of the pits and put in a perfect lap on the first flying lap. Tyre preparation, pretty difficult in these cars.
Yes, indeed. We got to remember that all of the cars in this field are using iRacing's new version 7 tyre model, which requires you to put some effort into heating up the tyres. Otherwise, you're going to slide about as soon as you come out of the pits. Takes 1 or 2 laps for them to come up to temperature, but that is qualifying done for the drivers. And we're going to take a look now at the championship standings, starting with the GT class. And after round 2, there has been a bit of a mix-up. Zach Plummer is leading the championship by only 1 point, and Tyson Meyer, who had taken a dominant win at Interlagos, well, he retired last round at Barber, so he slipped back to 3rd in the championship standings. Meanwhile, his teammate Dominic Olivier, with a win at Barber, is rocketing himself up to 4th. So the standings are looking quite close already in GT.
Yeah, and look at that. 4 cars tied on 40 points there. Hayden Gober, Jack Anderek, Johan Boyson, who drove a very, very interesting race at Barber. I'm sure we can touch on that a bit later. And Racing Fazui there, who's currently on pole for this round of the GT class. Well, yeah, he's also on 40 points there. So it is very, very close. 5th through to 10th. 3 points to separate 6 drivers.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely fantastic. And a good variety of cars as well. You got Audi, Ferrari, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, McLaren, Audi. And we know how Johan Boyson was able to work wonders in that McLaren last round. We'll see what he can do at VIR. We move to the GS standings, and oh my goodness, this is quite interesting. Tied for the lead between Andrew Caron and Brian Lockwood. We got to remember both of these guys have been battling each other hard, and with that position change on the last lap, last round, certainly put things into perspective for the championship fight. Graham Sanders is a pretty long way behind at the moment, but nonetheless, I'm really looking forward to seeing Caron versus Lockwood throughout the season there.
Yeah, exactly. Those two guys have quite a bit over the rest of the field. They've taken 1 win each and 1 second place each to absolutely match each other. But then again, you look just a little bit further down there and, 2 points behind Giovanni Romano is Luke Vodacek, and then he's tied with Sam Holden, who's then 2 points ahead of John Botafer there, who's 1 point ahead of Justin Rame, who's 2 points ahead of David Browning. So I think we're still quite early in this championship. There's a lot of guys who could move their way up, and it's looking very, very close. Not just tied for first there, but also down the order in the points close as well.
You're definitely going to be seeing some shuffling in those standings as time goes on. Well, now we're taking a look at the pole lap in our GT class because Racing Fazui put in a fantastic 1 minute 46.168 to take pole overall for this race. He's back after an absence from the second round at Barber, formerly of Mivano, but he is now a privateer, and what a way to kick off his going solo career. And this part of the lap at VIR, through the roller coaster, through the hog pen, it's all about setting up your run out of here to start your lap. Got to keep it tight and run out over that exit curb. Get a good run down the start-finish stretch. I call it a stretch because it's not really a straight, curves to the right by the tree. And you got to pick your braking point. He brakes at about the 3 marker coming into this hairpin to start off the lap. And the track just wants to keep going right, and you have to stay all the way to the right. Widen your entry into the following left-handers. It actually looks like there was an incident in front of Racing. Oh, wow. Amazing that he managed to keep that going. That's very lucky, and this turned out to be his fastest lap. Through the S's then. Got to be very careful over these curbs. You don't want to put too much of a wheel into the grass, otherwise you will get an off track and it will invalidate your lap. Then a short straight and through to the very fast S's coming over the hill. The car wants to get unsettled, but you have to be smooth, you have to be brave, you have to get down into 4th gear, make sure you can get through the left-hander, then up to Oak Tree. You're braking almost all the way through here as you continue to bear right, and then slam on the throttle onto the straight. And then he's got a nice draft from the Mercedes in front of him to help him down towards the roller coaster and the hog pen. And this straight, quite wide, you're going to see a lot of experimentation in lines through here because it bears left and right ever so slightly. And then a curved entry. Keeping off those curves. You don't want to use them too much in this section. It's all about that mechanical grip. And Racing Fazui has put together an incredibly clean run here to put together a 1 minute 46.168 and take pole position for round 3 of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. Really good lap.
Yeah, and don't let that fog fool you into thinking it was cold out there. Quite a hot track, would have been quite slippery as well, you know, have to be quite careful through a lot of those corners. Some real swamp weather in Virginia for this race today is what we've got. Partly cloudy, a lot of moisture in the air that you can see, but it's definitely not cold.
No, certainly not. And it's going to work with visibility as well, which is going to be a slight issue. Well, gridding time is almost here. Almost. Stay with us on SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network. We're going to go on a very quick break. We'll bring you the grid when we come back.
Assist to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's gonna pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing!
Racely to the inside goes Logan Clapman is gonna touch in. Pit crash sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside, and Tronke goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
He's trying, there's contact though.
Slide left of the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my god!
Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
This is very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god! God, what?
Welcome one, welcome all to race time in the Geodesic GoPro Championship. We've only got a couple of minutes before the grid is due to be set, and we'll get ready for a 75-minute race around Virginia International Raceway. If you like what you're seeing here, get onto iRacing.com. iRacing is one of the world's premier motorsport simulations, and it covers the entire motorsport spectrum, including GT racing like this. Fantastic stuff. My name is Reese Gardner, once again. David Haynes joining me in the commentary box. And you can barely see anything from that chopper shot. Imagine what it's like for the drivers on the ground, not being able to see the other side of the track like they usually do. Make sure to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network as well. Us, Race Spot, LSR TV, and many others, including GSRC, affiliated with this channel and bringing you some of the best competition on the iRacing platform every single day of the week. The checkered flag is flying in this qualifying session as the drivers continue through their briefing, but David, now we get on to the question of the start. Racine Fazui and Robert Harris are going to share the front row. Johan Boysen in third place there. He did the fuel-free run at Barber. Quite interesting to see what he can do in the McLaren from here. Tyson Meyer starting from fourth. He'll want to get that championship lead back. Luis Enriquez and Blake Neck rounding out the top six. Jason Gotter and Dominic Olivier, winner of last round, sharing row four. Adam Crane and Zach Plummer rounding out the top 10. Jesper Drulicka is going to start in position 11 in his McLaren, and Caleb John Lavender starts from 12th. Elijah Mitchell and Garrett Thompson in row 7. Aaron Ackles, who is currently in third, I believe, in the standings in GT. He starts from 15th alongside Hayden Gober. And our GT field rounded out by Mark Noski, Jack Anderek, and Olda Stepanovsky. Now, David, we move on to our GS class grid.
Yep, and there we rode on board for Brian Lockwood's pole lap that puts him more than 0.7 of a second ahead of his teammate Justin Tipton, who is going to line up on the front row with him. Behind them there, Giovanni Romano in third, Alan Powell in fourth. Shinya Mishimi returns to the championship in fifth place there. He's driven around here a few times before. Andrew Caron in sixth, your co-points leader with Brian Lockwood. So he's going to have a bit of work to do from sixth there. Luke Wodacek, we saw him there in qualifying. He's going to start from seventh. John Botafor is in eighth. David Browning in ninth. Chris Roberts in 10th. In GS class, and two more that we've got is Sam Holden and Marcus Deck. So interesting grid, some racing to happen in our 75-minute race coming up very shortly.
Yes, indeed, and it's going to be a question of strategy, as it was last round at Barber and the round before it into Lagos, because they do have a fuel restriction. These are the race conditions, 42-degree track temperature, so it is going to be a bit slick out there as the track continues to rubber up, but it is incredibly humid, so it's going to be interesting to see what that does to engine performance. Not that windy, and we've got 75 minutes to go in this race once they set off behind the iRacing pace car. In terms of strategy, the GT class will have to pit for fuel unless Boysen can pull off a miracle like he did last round at Barber. But in the GS class, it's a slightly different story. Some might pit, some might not. It depends on how your fuel saving goes.
Yep, certainly. So some variable race lengths across this season, across this championship, but we're 75 minutes for this race like we were last round at Barber. You've really got to think though, Barber much tighter, much slower, got a couple more chicanes going on. There is some long straights here at VIR, the pit straight. You can also go pretty fast coming up the S's towards Oak Tree, and then of course that back straight is quite a long full throttle blast. So even though time-wise these two races are the same length and some drivers were able to no stop last round, I think fuel consumption in both classes is going to be a little bit higher than it was 2 weeks ago. And also, it's a longer length of lap around here. And as you can see, we're doing the full pace lap. So there's a few things that could make consumption and the amount of fuel required for this race just a little bit more than it was last round, where a couple of drivers were able to squeak home without a fuel stop.
Yes, indeed. They're very good points that you make there, David. It is a very fast track with a lot of straight line sections. So you see Racing Fazui keeping it in as high a gear as possible to try and save fuel as he makes his way along the track. And in the GS class, well, we're right on board with the Geodesic racing car. Chris Roberts staying in second gear for the moment, but we'll be seeing drivers all through both classes short shifting all the way up to 6th to try and preserve as much fuel as possible, because any fuel you can save while you're setting up is fuel that is going to gain you time when you eventually make your pit stop. And you see that both classes are giving each other a good amount of room. That is the agreement between the drivers and part of the rules of the championship. We cannot start the race as one grid like is normal in sim racing. Every class giving each other the requisite space.
Now we've got a signified race start zone on the pit straight for this round, and that is, it starts at about where the pit entry deviates from the racing circuit as a painted line there. So we've got to make sure no one jumps the start and that our leader doesn't put the throttle down and going racing before he reaches that point. I do believe that applies to both classes. So all of our drivers were just in their driver's briefing after qualifying. I do hope they were reminded about that race start zone. And that should mean that we get a pretty level, pretty competitive start. Racing Fazui isn't going to be able to get everyone else napping. It should be plenty of too wide down into that turn 1 hairpin.
Yeah, certainly should. It's all going to be about watching your opponents and hoping and praying that you can get enough of a jump on them that you gain, but not so much that you pass them before the start-finish line, because that is the point of contention. If you pass them before the start-finish line, then it's breaking the rules. So, through the roller coaster and down into Hog Pen for the final time under pacing conditions. And the pace car has entered the pits, so now Racing Fazui assumes full control of the field. Only a couple of turns to go. And this very narrow section of track is going to be the scene of many big drama moments, I'm sure. So, here we go. GT field forming up. Passing at the pit entry, you see where the painted lines deviate in the V shape. That is the start zone, and Racing Fazui goes right away as soon as he enters that zone. Johan Boyson getting a good start as well. Robert Harris has fallen back to 3rd place. Jesper Drulicka and Luis Henriquez and Tyson Meyer side by side coming into turn 1 as they all pile into the hairpin for the first time. We have a race start in our GS class as well. Brian Lockwood leads. It's a Racecraft 1-2. Justin Tipton in 2nd. Alan Powell has made his way up into 3rd, just getting past Giovanni Romano. Andrew Caron almost going into the back of Romano. He is desperately trying to make up some positions.
Yeah, so Romano going backwards a little bit on the start in that class, and Alan Powell and Andrew Caron obviously storming on their cold tyres at the start on this first lap. Gone almost single file in both of our classes now, and that's the effect of that turn 1 hairpin. They're going to come through lower S's and the rising S's for the first time, but the pole sitters in both classes managing to hold onto it.
Yes, indeed. Racine Fazui is enjoying a nice lead over Johan Boyson. Oh no, there's a mistake for Robert Harris. He's gone straight ahead on the run up to Oak Tree. He's going to have to re-enter the track here. And Jesper Drulika has to go, oh, hold on a minute. Jason Goddard with some issues on the exit of Oak Tree as well. So it's going off a little bit in the GT class. And Harris falling back. He will not want this.
No, certainly not. So a couple of drivers indeed having problems through Oak Tree. Now towards Roller Coaster for the first time. Tough braking zone as you come uphill, kink to the left, and then into a sharp right-hander that then drops away drastically on the exit. Most of our drivers through there cleanly, but what a lead Racing Fazui has built. Almost 2 seconds on the first lap. He has those tyres right where he wants them.
He certainly does, and it's on here between Jesper Drulika and Blake Neck for the other positions in this field. Side by side, Drulika trying to hold on through turn 1, but Blake Neck with that inside line, and he's on the rubber on the inside, getting the better exit there. Drulika driving the McLaren, which is a hard car to drive at the best of times, and around a track like Virginia with lots of harsh curbs and lots of bumps, certainly doesn't like it around here.
Yeah, well, he's not the only McLaren out there. There is certainly a couple of them, so we'll see how the strengths and weaknesses of the different GT3 models go throughout the race as the tyres wear and such, but a very solid spread across the different manufacturers, which is fantastic to see in this championship. It is an Audi leading, but the McLarens are in and amongst it. There's some Mercedes in there, and the McLarens not doing too badly for themselves either.
Certainly not. Lewis here. Oh, hold on a minute. David Browning. We just saw there's a potential move going on in the GT class, but Team Tortuga's David Browning experiencing a spin coming up to the lower S's, and we will get a building optimization systems replay of what happened here. And looks like it might have been an easy mistake to make, just getting into the braking zone and catching the grass on entry. There's no curb to protect you there in the sim, so that's unfortunate for Mr. Browning. But as we go back to live pictures, Jesper Drulika is chasing down Blake Neck still, and the McLaren has a good amount of straight line speed under its belt, but Drulika has fallen back now from Blake Neck. He's focusing on what's behind him now at the moment, and the battle between Luis Henriquez and Robert Harris, I think, is going to start heating up pretty soon. Harris and Henriquez have come together on the last lap, and Henriquez going a little bit deep into turn 1, and Harris will be wanting to get back up there. Of course, he qualified in 2nd place, down in 9th at the moment, and that is an off track there from Luis Henriquez. That gives Harris the advantage he needs, and there we go. The position for Harris, he is back up to 8th. So
yeah, Henriquez wide through left hook in NASCAR. Another wiggly moment. I'm pretty sure that's Jesper Drulika there. He holds on to it, drops him back a little bit of time, and you mentioned that, you know, the curbs are pretty sharp there. You come through the right-handers and into the lower S's there, and he's had another drama.
That's huge. Huge slide from Jesper Drulika, but he recovers it and re-enters the track. How he saved that, I have no idea, but he's lost positions from that. Unfortunate, but Robert Harris has managed to... Oh, Hayden Gober as well with issues, having to travel all the way across the grass. Where is he going? Getting back on track just in front of Oak Tree. I'm not sure where he went off, but that's still quite the cross-country route to take.
Has to be South Bend there, similar to what Drulika did, but he's just managed an even further of an excursion out towards the tobacco plantations of this region of Virginia. We're going to see the replay here. That's Noski behind him. Did he get a little bit of help? He might have gotten just the tiniest bit of help on the braking zone there, and that has sent him postcodes and postcodes away from the racing surface. Here's the onboard from Noski. Obviously, it's a little tap of a braking zone here, and whoop, off he goes.
That's unfortunate, but out into the kitty litter he was, and back onto the racetrack he is. Meanwhile, in our GS class, battle for the lead between the two racecraft boys. These guys won't want to get in each other's way too much. Racecraft Esports doesn't strike me as the kind of team that would apply team orders, but they still want to consolidate a good result for the whole team, especially considering that they have got Alan Powell monstering the back of them at the moment. Quite interesting to see that that he is pressuring them as much as he is. A proper 3-car battle for the podium, and I see a pass for 4th, or an attempted pass for 4th. Andrew Caron just trying to get by Shinya Machimi in the braking zone, but went too deep. Machimi back in front.
Yeah, so obviously really close between these guys, and it's great to see Alan Powell sticking with the front pack in this class. He had a bit of a spin in qualifying, and maybe because of that, or was it in practice as well, but because of that, maybe he didn't qualify quite where he has the speed for. On race pace, though, it's looking very good. The thing to question is, who is going to go to the end on fuel in this class, and what effect is that having on the pace of different drivers?
Yeah, exactly. You're not quite sure what everyone is doing. Some drivers might be lifting and coasting just a little bit in the draft, and the pace can sort of mask that if they're in the draft. So it will be interesting to see. We won't find out for sure until the second half of the race. But Machimi and Caron continuing to fight for 4th and 5th in our GS class, and Caron in the draft down the back straight. This car is difficult to put passes on. It does have ABS, it does have traction control, but it is, as you said, David, a low downforce car, requires some finesse to drive, and that's Mark Noski getting past there by, I believe that's Jack Anderek for Big Bone Racing.
Yep, correct. So Anderek through in the early section. Sam Holden has confused the camera operators by how far he's gone for an excursion through VIR, America's Motorsports Resort. There's a kart track here. I don't think he found it. There's a spa. Not sure he found it. Apparently there's a shooting range as well. I'm not sure he found that either.
Well, one thing he did find was the tyre barrier on his right rear quarter. So that looked like a very long and painful slide for him, and it happened on the run up into roller coaster. He just caught the grass on the inside by going too deep. Once you get out onto that grass, it looks incredibly slippery. Fortunately, he doesn't have too much damage from that. Thank you to Building Optimization Systems once again for your support. And now we have a look at the top 5 battle in the GT class. Dominic Olivier winning the last round at Barber after his teammate Tyson Meyer retired from the lead. So Olivier chasing down Adam Crane at the moment for position 4. Adam Crane doing a 48.0 on the last lap, a 47.934 for Dominic Olivier. Only slightly faster, but a gain is a gain.
Certainly is. Cast those eyes back to the GS class, though, because Andrew Caron is still trying to find a way past Shinya Machimi. Coming down the backstretch here, definitely the fastest part of the circuit, and these Porsche Cayman 718 Club Sport Cayman things, they can certainly wind their way up to a very significant top speed. Not a lot of downforce also means not a lot of drag, and they just keep winding up down a long straight like that. Can reach some speed in these cars down the back straight there, but it wasn't close enough for Caron. He's still just a couple tenths behind Shinya Machimi.
Yeah, but getting a consistent exit from the last turn. And whoa, we already see... Whoa, was that a mistake there for Alan Powell? I think it might have been. He must have... Yeah, he did. He caught the grass on the exit of the last turn. Building Optimization Systems replay. This guy was running in 3rd place behind the 2 Racecraft guys, but you'll see him get on the throttle here, just run a little bit wide, bit of oversteer. He corrected it, but man, good thing he managed to save that before he took an unintended trip through pit lane.
Yeah, that was a bit of an in moment there. Just managed to get it back out on circuit, but it shows how difficult these cars can be to drive on the limit. Track temperature has continued to increase, so it's probably not getting any easier for these guys. And through all of that, Shinya Machimi might have had to have checked up a little bit, because Andrew Caron has gone through on him, and that means up 2
Oh, that's another
positions.
spot lost. Right there, another spot lost for Shinya Michimi as Marcus Deck, who started all the way at the back of the grid in GS, is absolutely rocketing up at the moment. Slight mistake from Caron up ahead, but yeah, not going too well for Shinya Michimi at the moment. Once you get a lap off to a bad start at Virginia International Raceway, tends to carry through all the way to the next one. Update from race control. They have determined Mark Noske to be at fault for his collision with Hayden Gober, and they are giving him a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision. And Adam Crane off in the weeds there. That's not going to work out well for him. He was running in 4th place in our GT class before that point. But, David, it just looks like the grass around this circuit is catching people out time and time again.
Yeah, and with the humidity and the fog and the track temperatures, I'm not sure the track is giving you much more grip either. That's another example of putting just a quarter of the width of the tire on the grass, and you know, it escalates quickly, and around you go. We've seen that from a couple of drivers.
We certainly have. And Tyson Meyer is hoping that that sort of thing won't happen to him, because sometimes it is mistakes like that that are Meyer's downfall. He is a very skilled driver, but lacks that final bit of consistency to keep him in those good record books. He is doing a good job of holding second place here in our GT class, though. And the gaps up the front are staying very consistent. And, well, having said that, Tyson Meyer gaining 7/10 on Racim Fazui almost on that last lap. So he's starting to turn up the pace. Meanwhile, Jesper Drilica and Zach Plummer battling for 8th and 9th. And they've got a little bit of company as well in the form of Luis Henriquez just up ahead in the other McLaren.
Yeah, indeed, very, very close here. One of the places we've seen it's easy to make a mistake through the lower S's here as you sort of leave the first sector of the lap, and maybe one of the places the Audi could be a little bit stronger. In a straight line, though, you have to imagine that the McLaren ought to be positioned to be able to make some overtakes. So we'll see what can happen here for Plummer and Drilica. Probably have to wait for the back straight to make a move, though.
Yeah, it's a twin-turbo V8 in the back of the McLaren and a naturally aspirated V10 in the Audi. Oh, another mistake in the same location for Jesper Drilica. Once again, he does recover it, but losing time out of it as well. And he's gone again on the exit of Oak Tree. Not having a great time in 9th place is Jesperoni.
Yeah, indeed. But that corner, it's a tough one. You know, obviously, a lot of these cars looking very taily, drivers having to fight to keep them under control at all places. But then you have that corner before Oak Tree there where you turn in fast and then the track immediately drops away. In any car, that's going to make the rear want to rotate. So they have to be so precise and so gentle with the inputs in that particular corner. And then, of course, not a lot of curbing, plenty of grass. So all those things together makes it a struggle spot.
Yeah, so in 10th place, Garrett Thompson is going to probably look to get it done on Jesper Drilica if those kinds of incidents keep up. It's down to 9/10 for the battle for the race lead as they are encountering traffic for the first time. Racim Fazui making his way through the back markers in the GS class, and Tyson Meyer just coming up on John Botifer in the middle of the lower S's. Had to take a little bit of evasive action through there. How's he going to go versus Browning? He's going to have to lift off the throttle, is he? Yes! Then he's losing a lot of time here in the middle of the big S's. David Browning, of course, doing nothing wrong here, but catching the grass on entry, and oh my goodness, a huge hit! He's been collected by Johan Boyson. Huge crash.
That McLaren is stuck on its lid. It's not getting back on its wheels by itself. We have not seen a safety car before this round, but now we've got one. More sickening rolls there for Boyson. Drilica has hit him as well, and we have for, I believe, the first time in this championship, a safety car. More damage as well. It's one of the Action Sim Sport Audis there. Wow, this changes a lot in this race as well. Safety car gonna come out.
My goodness. Okay, so the field gets a chance to reset here. And I don't know if we're going to see any retirements from this. Hopefully all the drivers can get back out there. Unfortunately, it just looked like Browning, he wanted to give Tyson Meyer the little bit of room that he needed, but it's just really awkward in that part of the track, and Browning just misaligned his car right here on the entry, just catching the grass. Like you said before, David, a quarter of a tyre width, and Boyson couldn't do anything. He had that Porsche all the way across the racetrack, and of course Boyson is lying on his roof. This wasn't going to be the last of that incident. Absolutely pile-drived into, and Jesper Drilica, among others, having to work around that.
Yeah, and we saw that, actually, 3 or 4 cars having to go off circuit to avoid him. 1 or 2 clipped him. We see this in the replay from Drilica, and, it's always tough to be on your lid on the paved stuff, but then you have a look here, he's got 2 cars in front of him, he comes around the corner, and then suddenly, not a lot of visibility that, sure, you ought to have some idea that a car was stopped ahead, but if you didn't know exactly where they were, you didn't have a lot of notice there. So Plummer, Drilica, Boyson, all on pit lane right now, and I'm not sure which of them we might see back out on circuit.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that that we'll see Plummer back out there, potentially. He does like to have a run, does Zach, but at the moment it looks like all 3 drivers are not present in their cars in the pits. There's going to be a lot of damage being repaired, especially for Johan Boyson. He is missing many body panels, and if that's not a retirement, I'll be very surprised. Big shame for Johan. He absolutely set the timing screens alight at Barber last round. The only car in the GT class to not make a pit stop. He always, he seems to like throwing that spanner into the works. So it's a real shame to lose him. And if we lose Plummer and Drilica as well, it will also be a shame. But we focus on the drivers that are still out on track. And Racim Fazui is your race leader, a privateer now, formerly of Mivano Racing Team. The safety car is currently in the middle of Hogpen and will be assuming the control of the field very soon. We should expect another 2 laps behind the safety car at least before we go racing again. So the drivers have a good opportunity here to not go full throttle, which will work out pretty well for the GS class. This could be the element that some of them need to not do a pit stop through this whole race. Having said that, we do have 1 GS class car in the pit lane, John Botifer. We have 2 now. Sam Holden has decided to come in. These guys evidently believe they are not going to make it all the way on fuel. We're seeing some GT class cars as well coming in. The Mercedes of Adam Crane, Jack Anderek, and Hayden Gober in the Audis. Pit lane is coming alive.
Yep, so seeing lights out on the pace car, 1 more lap to go, and obviously pit lane open, and I might have expected to have seen a couple more cars pit at this point, but we have had 4 from the GT class, so Jason Gotter, Adam Crane, Jack Anderek, and Hayden Gober, all taking the opportunity to refuel. Not looking like... Hey, maybe Hayden Gober's taking some repairs or tyres right now. He's taking tyres right now. That makes a lot of sense to me based on how hot the track is, and he'll definitely still be able to catch all of the field. And then indeed, some in the GS class taking the opportunity for just a little bit of fuel, about 6 or 7 seconds of fuel for John Botifer and Sam Holden. So we'll see if this really helps some of those guys who pit right now.
Yeah, we certainly will. One driver that we kind of forgot about in the midst of all of that melee was Robert Harris. He just narrowly avoided getting too much damage there from Boyson, avoiding him when the caution flag came out. Harris does have a bit of damage to his rear wing as we see the GS class cars leaving the pits. Marcus Deck comes out in 5th place. And Marcus,
Lights
we've
back
been
on the pace
wanting-
car. We're not going green this time.
Yeah,
So that's a change.
that is. I think they might wave lapped cars by so that we can resume racing in a fair manner in both fields. We got to remember this happened just as the GT class cars were coming up to lap the back markers in GS. And if things stay the way they are, then those lap GS class cars are not going to have much of a chance to regain positions on their rivals if they've already been lapped. So, should be interesting to see what's going to happen here. Got to remember, this is the first time we've seen a safety car this season, so for us here at SimSpeed TV, we are learning along with you, and we will see how this goes. Coming up on 53 minutes to go in this round of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. What we should think about is the prize. Driver of the Day per class. It's going to be quite interesting to see who gets that because, man, we have a lot of very good drivers in this field. A lot of drivers that have some excellent form under them, and they'll get $25 if they manage to get through. So really looking forward to seeing that, and a big thanks to our sponsors for providing prizes for this championship.
Yeah, indeed. Believe that today's driver of the day in each class is sponsored by Toking from Adelaide. So that is fantastic to have that little extra prize we can give this round. And it's not necessarily the driver who wins each class, but driver of the day. So if someone came from back of the grid to stand on the podium, they could definitely be a potential candidate for that. If someone had, an outstanding drive in some other way, could potentially be them.
Certainly could.
More pit stops.
Yeah, more pit stops indeed. We're seeing some pitters down in the GT and GS classes, Brian. Whoa! Hold up a minute. That checkup caught out the Geodesic car, Chris Roberts. He's going to come straight back onto the track there. Very slippery grass. That's a little bit embarrassing, but fortunately he's managed to get it back going. We'll get a building optimization systems replay of that, see what happened. Of course, coming through at racing speed, and you got to remember, you're not allowed to pass cars under safety car, and everybody was checking up. Roberts hard on the brakes and just tagging the grass, going straight across the hairpin.
Yeah. Oh, that's scary from that angle, but certainly, yeah, he just came in quite hot to that situation where everyone was checking up into turn one. Some cars were coming out of the pits and they were trying to, get direction from race control, who restarts in front of who. So once again, lights are out on our Porsche safety car there, presently pacing the field. It looks like we've got most of the field back in order, but it's interesting to see that time around a couple of cars that didn't pit the first time decided to pit. One of them was Brian Lockwood, your pole sitter from the GS class. So he must be seeing that even with this yellow flag opportunity that we've got, he's thinking the fuel's not looking so good for them. So he's rejoined down in 6th in class.
Yeah, certainly is. It's 3.5 seconds of fuel that Lockwood put into that car, so that should put him in a good position to go through the rest of this race. We're under 50 minutes now. It's already been almost half an hour of time elapsed in this race. Absolutely flown by. Just seems to be action going on all throughout this field, and we're looking for it to resume very, very soon. Once again, we are SimSpeed TV, and you're watching the Geodesic GoPro Championship. And this is going to really heat things up in terms of the standings. If Racine Fazui can hold on and take this victory, that's going to mix up the standings even more. If Tyson Meyer can hold on for second place, that will help him in the championship standings. He's got his teammate Dominic Olivier behind him to either play as rear gunner or push him to drive even harder. That's the benefit of having teammates. Pace car is going to come in at the end of this, peeling off into the pit lane, and Racine Fazui assumes control of the field. A single file restart now on lap 12. They're beginning lap 13 in our GT class. Green flag flies, and there goes Racine Fazui, and it looks like Olivier getting a better start than Meyer. They're going to go side by side into the braking zone. Meyer with a bit of a slipstream as well. Meyer on the brakes early. Olivier goes by into second place, but he is out on the wide, dirty side of the track. And oh my goodness, there goes Robert Harris, just catching the curb, and he's off into the grass, losing so many positions. That is going to hurt. He's back there in the midst of the GS class now. John Botifer currently up the front of all of that and gonna get pincer moved almost by the Racecraft Esports car of Justin Tipton. He goes off into the grass. Blake Neck having to find his way through all of this melee at the moment, but it's chaos in the GS class at the moment. Side by side through the lower S is another car off. That is the Lavender Sim Racing car of Giovanni Romano. And there's a McLaren about to come through on these guys. This is going to hurt. Luis Henriquez. It's for the lead side by side in the GS class. This is absolutely crazy right now. And off into the grass. Is he going to get back on
for Marcus
constructively?
Deck. Cost him quite a couple of positions there. He has just managed to get it back together, but he's lost the spot there to Andrew Carron, as well as the one who's battling for with Brian Lockwood. We've got a couple of faster cars that took their pit stops later and have ended up in this position here. Look at that McLaren going to try and jump past as many Porsches as possible before Roller Coaster. Luis Henriquez, late pit stop. Well, can't see much out the rear window there, Mr. Director, but he's hoping to put all of these cars behind him before he gets to the difficult corner of Roller Coaster.
And he does. So Henriquez just escaping that, but driving a little deep into Hog Pen for good measure. Luke Wojtaszek, meanwhile, involved in the fight towards the back. Garrett Thompson and Caleb Lavender coming together here for 4th and 5th in our GT class. Ferrari versus Audi, and there's a pass for the lead in GS. Justin Tipton is blasted past John Botifer on the run up to turn 1, and now here comes Shinya Michimi trying to get past. Botifer is actually a lap down, I correct myself. So Justin Tipton is keeping a lead of about half a second there from Shinya Michimi, but my goodness, he's being pressured something chronic by Brian Lockwood.
Yeah, so only a couple cars in this GS class that haven't made a pit stop underneath that long yellow that we just had. So Tipton in the lead, no pit stop. And then also Andrew Carron in 4th, no pit stop. Michimi and Lockwood both took about 3 seconds of fuel. I don't know how much fuel they decided they needed, you know, nip down to the shops for a 3-litre milk or something, but not a whole lot of fuel. But they both decided that adding a little bit of fuel at that pit stop would let them go flat out to the end here. And let's see, are those two going to catch Tipton? And is the battle for the win now between Michimi and Lockwood?
Yes, indeed. Going to the lead of the GT class, though, because it is on now. And tell you what, Tyson Meyer seems to have had a great turn of form off that restart, really pressuring the back of Racine Fazui now. We saw that Tyson had some excellent pace before the safety car came out, but now Racine Fazui is going to have to respond. The lead is under half a second now.
Yep. Audi versus Audi as well for the lead up here, and in 4th place Garrett Thompson is our biggest mover so far. He's gained 10 positions from 14th in the grid up into 4th. He's not quite a factor for the lead battle, as we got another GS class off the bottom of the roller coaster. Luke Wojtaszek losing a lot of time there, but fortunately not looking like a lot of damage.
Yeah, fortunately not a huge amount of damage for him. My apologies, everyone. I'm just trying my best here to sort out a few things on my end. Of course, it's not sim racing broadcasting without a few technical issues somewhere along the way, but for
Watching the battle
second
for
and
second,
third,
indeed. Shinya Mishimi is starting to look under quite a bit of pressure from Lockwood. Nothing could happen into turn one. The draft is, just moderate in these cars, not anything like it would be in an F3 car or some other kind of cars, but once you're up into 5th and 6th gear, pulling the slipstream and the draft off the car in front can help you, especially the long straights that we've got here at VIR. I'm thinking of the back stretch in particular as well. So Mishimi's in a difficult position here where he's got Lockwood closing in behind him, and he's trying to close up on the lead of Tipton, who's also a racecraft driver. So he's beleaguered on both sides is Mishimi, but he's in a position to get to the end on fuel and potentially take the race lead if he can get just a little bit further up the circuit. Big slide through Oak Tree, though.
yeah, and that's giving an advantage here to Brian Lockwood. He is well and truly in the draft now. I think this might be a pass into Hogpen right on the bumper of Shinya Mishimi is Brian Lockwood. What side of the track do you go for? It's interesting because it curves to the left, but the actual corner itself is a right-hander. It's going to have to be the mother of all-out braking moves here for Brian Lockwood, and he manages to get it done. Mishimi falls into line behind them as they enter Ogpen, so it's back to a Racecraft 1-2, but in the reverse order to what we started with.
Yep, certainly back at the lead of the GT class, though. Fazui, your pole sitter, still leading, but this is the most pressure I think he's had since the drop of the green flag. You remember, he bolted away into the lead on the first lap. The safety car has brought it all back together, and the speed that Meyer managed to find after a couple laps, the confidence that he had once the tyres got up to temperature, well, he's got that all again now, and he's right in the toe of Tyson Meyer, and starting to build a couple of seconds away from Dominic Oliveira behind as well.
Yes, indeed. This top two in our GT class starting to pull away. 47.9 for Racine Fazui, 47.7 for Tyson Meyer, a 48.2 for Dominic Olivier. So he's all on his lonesome at the moment. But these two Audis up the front, I tell you what, this is going to be an excellent battle when things eventuate. And there's a pass at Oak Tree, meanwhile. That's Mark Noski getting past Jason Goddard and Robert Harris behind these guys, looking to move back forward again. Harris has not had the best race so far, but Noski having a bit of a draft here from Jason Goddard. This could be a trade back in terms of possession. And it looks like it's going to be fairly simply done there for Goddard. Once a car makes a move coming into Hogpen, it's often best just to slip behind because, well, the track does narrow up fairly substantially here, as you can see.
That lead once again about a car length. Meyer looking much better through turn one, but he couldn't outbrake to the inside on that run to turn one. This is definitely played back in Tyson Meyer's favor after that safety car that we had, because it's let him close some of that back up, and he's got that confidence that he built up. But neither of these two guys are going to get to the end on fuel, surely, in their Audis, even with the safety car that we've had. There's quite a few cars deeper in the pack that you have to imagine we're very confident are fueled to get to the end. So do these guys need to clear out up the road to have enough of a gap to be able to make their final pit stop?
Yeah, that is the question. They would almost have to be hoping for another safety car to lose as little time as possible, but it's difficult to determine. I mean, that is endurance racing. Sometimes you just have to roll the dice. There's been a change for the lead, meanwhile, in our GS class between the two Racecraft esports drivers. Brian Lockwood getting past Justin Tipton, and we'll see how he did it here. Looks like a little bit of a problem in the mid-corner for Justin Tipton in turn one, and through goes Mr. Lockwood through into the lead. So, seems fairly simply done between those two, and they reform.
And we're not sure Tipton is fueled to get to the end either, so he's probably better placed to just sit in the tow behind his teammate for the minute. That'll definitely make it more likely that he makes it to the end on fuel without another pit stop.
Excellent point once again. Meanwhile, we take a look at the battle for the lower reaches of the top 10 in our GT class. Robert Harris lifting off the brakes ever so slightly, lifting off the throttle rather. A little bit of fuel saving maybe from the former champion of the top class in the Geodesic GoPro Championship.
Yeah, there's a move for 5th place just ahead of this here. I think Adam Crane and Caleb John Lavender have lost a bit of time there. I'm seeing Elijah Mitchell as having moved into 5th, and there was also a move, Blake Neck on Hayden Gober. So a lot of shuffled out of the order. Well, here is Caleb John Lavender losing those 2 positions indeed, just coming in too hot out of NASCAR and left hook there. But yeah, certainly the GT class was very muddled after that safety car, because some drivers pitted, some didn't, some were buried back in the GS class pack, some had made contact with the upside down Boyson as well. So they're trying to work their way back into ordering themselves based on pace, and that's seeing some drivers come back through the field, including Blake Neck and others.
Yes, indeed, but the lead is well and truly on here in the GT class. Tyson Meyer right on the back of Racine Fazui, and the gap is now under 0.3 of a second, almost 0.2 now. He's in the draft again coming into turn 1, but he's not quite far up enough to put a huge move on Racine Fazui. Fastest lap of the race for Tyson Meyer, a 47.298. Excellent stuff, and it shows that he has the pace he needs to stake his claim for this lead. But we know that Racine Fazui is an incredibly tough competitor, and he will defend this at all costs. You can't exactly put a move on anyone through this section. Oh no, that is problems there for Alan Powell. Got to remember, he was fighting for the podium in the GS class at the start of the race. What has happened to him here?
Going to take a look at the replay. That's Oak Tree, and didn't see many other cars around on that fantastic cable cam. I think he's just come in too hot, found a bit of the grass. We're going to see it once again from a little bit earlier. He's all by himself coming into Oak Tree, and this is such a tough corner, but the rear was gone early on his way in there, and you know, it's uphill, there's a crest, you're braking constantly, turning constantly, and you get a little bit of that grass and the tail goes around.
Unfortunate there for Alan Powell. He falls back in the class, but we'll see if he can work his way back up towards the end. The lead in GT, meanwhile, still locked in this stalemate is Fazui and Meyer. Looks like Fazui little bit better through Hogpen, but it's not going to be enough if Meyer gets a good exit here down the straight. We'll see what lap times they set as they come across the line. Is it going to be another improvement? It's going to be a 47.5 for both of them, so setting roughly the same time. You see Meyer moving around, trying to distract Fazui, trying to take the outside line in turn 1. But he just cannot maintain the momentum. He has to stick behind, but it's not all about the specific moves you make. It's about drilling into the driver behind you that you are there and that you are willing to go for that move. Robert Harris has thrown up the white flag and decided to go for his pit stop, get some of that damage repaired, get fuel, get tires, and get back out there in clear air, try to consolidate some kind of result for him.
It's half of the race done, half of it to go, about where we sit right now, and it's looking very, very exciting because there's question marks in all of our classes about who is fueled to get to the end. These guys at the lead had a bit of safety car, but I'm not sure it was anything like enough for a 75-minute race for these guys to get to the end. So they are setting some of the best pace that we've seen all race, and you can see from the column on the left-hand side that they're continually extending their lead away from some of the other cars. 5th place, Adam Crane, is the highest placed driver that I can confidently say is going to make it to the end from here. So really, if you're looking at 30 seconds to get into the pit lane and take a splash of fuel and get back out and get back up to speed, then you've got to look 30 seconds back from the leader to see where these guys might shuffle out if they still have to make a pit stop. And right now, 30 seconds back is outside of the top 10 for these guys. So if they still need a pit stop, they need to press on right now for the next 5 or 10 laps.
Yeah, that is the dilemma that you face. And it's another attempted move around the outside for Tyson Meyer, but he's able to hold on to it. They're side by side now. And coming into the left-hander, Meyer is going to have the advantage. He's got it almost. Oh, can Fuzui hold on only just? That is the move done for Tyson Meyer. That was a textbook example of setting up about 5 corners ahead. Keeping that outside line in turn 1, maintaining that momentum is what gave him the inside line for those left-handers, and he could get it done. Fantastic stuff. So Tyson Meyer is now your race leader.
Just as they're about to catch a little bit of traffic, who might that be? One of the big bone racing cars. But most of the GS traffic is still going to be a couple laps away from them, but we've seen when they catch that, all hell can break loose down the inside of the oak tree. He thought about putting the move on then. That checks up Tyson Meyer a little bit, not the exit he wanted out of oak tree. I think Racing Fezui had a better run.
Yeah, he does have a better run, but I don't know if he's going to be able to maintain it. They're only about halfway down the straight. He does get a bit of a draft, does Racine. Can he lunge for it on the inside? Meyer late on the brakes, though. Fuzui pulls out of it, but you get a sense that this battle for the lead is by no means over. Meyer is going to have to concentrate on putting down the throttle as easily as he can. Riding those curbs, goodness me, Meyer absolutely pounded the curb in Hogpen there. But for our GS class, once again, battling, and it's Alan Powell trying to get past Luke Wojciech here. And it's a good move down at turn 1 for Alan Powell. He gets himself back up into 8th place in GS. And there are our leaders right behind them, just coming up to them. So this could be another chance that Racine Fuzui needs, depending on where they catch up to these guys. They're probably going to actually get them as they come through the S's. So this could be a chance.
Yeah, and we've seen that's where it all came unstuck earlier in the race, is that it is very, very hard to get through traffic in the S's here, because while it's mostly flat out for both of these cars, they are little corners and you can't quite go too wide through that area. And so a great battle we have for the lead in GT, but you've got to look down the order a little bit. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, a 4-car battle for it, and Anderek is going to lose a spot to Aaron Ackles, who moves back up into 10th place. So a great battle these guys are having. Ackles hasn't pitted. Anderek and Goba right behind have. And Hate Goba, you saw, was one of those drivers who took fuel and tyres behind the safety car. Normally, you wouldn't do that under a green flag stop, but if you've got all the time you want with a safety car there, why not? So we'll see if that pays to Goba's advantage later on. Meanwhile, the lead further ahead, the traffic has made it interesting. Tyson Meyer is just going to hold on to it once again, but having gotten through and looked very punchy for a couple of laps, he's not getting away in the lead.
No, he's not, and that may be eating away at him a little bit. He'll want to try and put as much of a gap as possible between himself and Fuzui, because, well, when they come around to do their pit stop, that's going to really define how things go. One mistake can make him lose that position. If he overshoots his pit box, if he doesn't select the settings right, if he doesn't pull up in the pit box correctly. There's so many elements, especially the pit lane speed limit. You don't want to speed in pit lane. You will get a 15-second stop and hold if you do, and that's going to absolutely ruin your race. So Meyer and Fuzui will both be thinking about that, both trying to stay as calm as possible in their virtual cockpits, but they are bumper to bumper still. Next bit of traffic ahead of them is Giovanni Romano in the lavender car.
Yep, indeed. So still super close, underneath 0.3 of a second for these guys, and I can't help but feel like Meyer looks like he's got a little bit more downforce on the car, a little bit more rear wing wound on. He's a lot more confident through some of the corners. The rear doesn't look like it slides as much, but he doesn't look like he gets away in a straight line either. So little bit of compromise there potentially. Once again, oh, a reasonable exit out of Oak Tree.
Yeah, he gets the power down nicely and extends the gap out to a few car lengths. But yeah, I do notice that Fuzui does seem to have a bit better straight line advantage than Maya. Even when he's not in the draft, he's still gaining ever so slightly. Meanwhile, 4th and 5th in GT, Adam Crane and Garrett Thompson. Garrett has managed to make his way up into 5th place in the midst of all of the melee, all the pit stops that we've seen, and encountering some traffic as well.
Thompson was in 4th earlier. Adam Crane has worked his way through up into 4th, so it's a good race so far for Adam Crane because he's also already taken a pit stop, 14 seconds of fuel. Take a look at a replay here. It's Aaron Ackles has been, that's how Garrett Thompson lost the spot. There was some contact someone had with one of the GS class cars there. One of the big bone cars was well off the racetrack. Come back live though, Fizwi has taken a pit stop.
Oh, okay, that changes things. First of the leaders to blink is Racim Fuzui, and that's going to put him down into 8th place behind Blake Neck and the Geodesic Ferrari. So now Tyson Meyer doesn't have any pressure behind him, but he's going to have pressure being put on him all the same. When is he going to come in to take his pit stop? At this point, I'd say it would probably be pertinent to stay out as long as he can from this point.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, it's only 10 seconds of fuel for Racim at that stop, and he is 12 seconds behind Adam Crane, who has already pitted. So I think Maya's best course of action is stay out there, still try and build further ahead of Adam Crane. Otherwise, Crane has pulled a pit stop masterclass. He's looking like pit stop adjusted. He has a lead of 12 seconds at the moment.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on Adam Crane then, because, man, he does seem to be in the best position out of all the cars in the GT class. But does he have the fuel to make it home? We'll have to find out more towards the end. Under half an hour to go now in round 3 at Virginia International Raceway. And Tyson Meyer continues to lead. It's a Geodesic Racing 1-2 at the moment.
Meyer
Actually, Meyer, there we go. Yes, into the lane is Tyson Meyer. So he's responded right away. Wasn't quite expecting that. So how is this going to work out between himself and Fuzui?
Dominic Olivier continues through into the lead. Also hasn't made a pit stop. Adam Crane comes up into 2nd. Took 14 seconds of fuel underneath the safety car. That's more than Meyer, more than Fuzui. So I assume he's good to go. Meyer is going to come out ahead of Blake Neck critically. Yeah, it took just a tiny bit less fuel than Racim Fuzui did. So Meyer in 6th out on track right now, but still, what is that? Close to 6 seconds behind Adam Crane. So he's got work to do if he's going to be the winner and get back to the lead again.
Yes, indeed. He's going to have to really push that Audi. And, well, I think we know from past form that sometimes Tyson Meyer can push a bit too hard and put himself off into the weeds. He'll have to put some measured aggression into his driving if he wants to try and catch up to Crane. He is going to be helped a little bit, though, because Crane has got Giovanni Romano for company in the GS machine, just making his way past on the entry to Oak Tree. He's got clear air up ahead. The next car ahead of Romano is Andrew Caron. So now the draft comes into effect. Tyson Meyer will be looking to draft up to the back of Caleb John Lavender here. Meanwhile, for 4th and 5th in GS, Marcus Deck and Andrew Caron, the gap is 0.7 of a second between these guys, and in terms of pace, well, Andrew Caron not quicker than Marcus Deck on the last lap, but on this one, losing another 0.3 as well. Marcus Deck with the advantage at the moment.
Yeah, again, Deck took a little bit of fuel underneath the safety car. Caron didn't. Maybe Caron is desperately lifting and coasting here and there to try and get to the end. Otherwise, he might need a pit stop. So GS class, where still on the edge, who needs a pit stop, who doesn't. for the GT class, you have to say everyone who hasn't pitted yet is going to have to at some point.
Yes, indeed. And I reckon Dominic Olivier will be looking to come into the pits pretty soon as well. We've got to think about Garrett Thompson, Elijah Mitchell. Got to think about Mark Noski as well. In the GS class, Justin Tipton has not taken a stop just yet. So he could stand to lose quite a bit if there is not another safety car towards the end of this one. At the moment, it's looking like that safety car we got more towards the beginning is the only one we'll see, because people have calmed down now out there, and we're not seeing as many cross-class incidents.
Yep, certainly true. Fields will spread out a little bit more. Caleb John Lavender having dramas on his outlap out of the pit lane. I'm seeing fuel only for him on that stop. He's just come out of the pit lane, and then 2 corners later had a bit of a mistake here. I don't even think he caught the grass. That might have been the brake balance or something, but the rear has got very wiggly on him. He's had to flick that thing around in the outfield, get it pointing the correct way, and it's lost him a whole bunch of time. And Tyson Meyer has pushed too hard through the roller coaster, it looks like. He was only 4 seconds behind Adam Crane, your net leader. He was maybe trying to close that down, and he has had problems, and he's now behind Racing Fazui as well.
Oh no, it's all gone wrong for Tyson Meyer once again. We'll see what happened to him here on the Building Optimization Systems replay. Just catching the grass on the left, that unsettled him straight across the corner and off into the grass. Fortunately, not finding the wall, but that has cost him a lot of time. Here's the onboard then, which comes over the rise. It's very close, we're hearing. Let's have a look. Meyer just across, and whoa, my goodness, he almost collected the car in front of him. Very lucky.
And what an accident it would have been if 2 cars come together at that kind of speed, and then we cut away from it there. We're maybe going to have another look from Elijah Mitchell's perspective. Then we'll see after that how Racing Fazui came through into this as well. Here, there was just the slightest bit of contact there. Just a graze. Elijah Mitchell holds on to it, but you see, gets a bit of his rear wing knocked out, and his Racing Fazui at speed comes through into what I am calling net second place.
Yep, and I would be inclined to agree with you there, David. So that is that. And oh no, Racing Fazui's actually made a mistake as we come back live at Oak Tree. He has had a spin. And it looks like he's done that all on his own. He just caught the curb on the inside, which unsettled him right there. And around he goes. Looks like a couple of GS cars having issues ahead of him as well. So Meyer would have been kicking himself, but now he'll be a little relieved.
Yep, he'll be somewhat relieved. We've got battle here, Henriquez and Noski. Noski loses out of position there, it would look like, heading towards Roller Coaster, and they've got a little bit more traffic they've been working their way through as well, and Hayden Gober joins the back of that tail. Gober having fresher tyres than just about anyone else out there. Elijah Mitchell comes into the pit lane. He thinks he needs fuel. There's only a couple cars out there that still need to make a stop.
And we'll have to wait and see what laps they decide to come in. Coming up on 20 minutes to go in this one. In this battle, Garrett Thompson chasing down Adam Crane here for what is going to be the net lead of the race. We've got to remember, though, Garrett Thompson has not pitted yet, so he stands to lose a few more positions. And this is quite interesting, the traffic that they are encountering at the moment, losing a bit of time behind the Racecraft 1-2 that we've got going at the head of the GS class. Adam Crane is through before Oak Tree, but a little bit too much of a gap for Garrett Thompson to try and take advantage at the moment. But at the moment, Adam Crane running a very calm, cool, collected race. He's in a very good position right now to take this race win.
Certainly is. Sure, he's got Garrett Thompson behind him, but Thompson still needs a pit stop, like we said. It's 3 seconds backwards from Crane to Blake Neck, who pitted under the safety car, and then another 4 seconds behind there to Tyson Meyer, who we saw his green flag stop. So when you look at the cars that we can be confident are fueled to get to the end, it's Adam Crane first, Blake next second, Tyson Meyer third. Crane is in quite a good position, but he's only got a couple of seconds in the bag. He can't afford any mistakes.
No, he certainly can't, and mistakes are very easy to make at Virginia International Raceway, as we've seen demonstrated by many drivers throughout this field. So Racine Fazui down in 6th place, making his way past Mr. Caron, and that's a nice move done into turn 1, but overshooting just slightly. These cars do have anti-lock brakes, but doesn't necessarily mean you can slam it into the braking zones. Noski takes a green flag pit stop meanwhile. He does have a post-race time penalty to consider, so he needs to work that into his calculations. Meanwhile, Garrett Thompson resuming the chase of Adam Crane. And this is quite the battle we're seeing. Got to remember, he has yet to come into the pits, does Garrett Thompson, so this is not going to be the battle outright for the race lead at the moment.
Your man who's being scored in the lead of the race, though, Olivier, quite the gap he's got as everyone, battles and falls off the track behind him. We've got an Audi in the wall there. Caleb John Lavender's not had a good time since his pit stop. Wonder if that's going to be your time for him there, but take a look at the replay. My point is, Olivier is building up enough an advantage that he might still stand on the podium after his pit stop. Let's take a look at this.
Yeah, so Caleb John Lavender passing a GS class, attempting to pass a GS class car, but making contact into turn 1 and barely hitting the brakes at all. That's a big smash into the wall for Caleb Lavender, and John Botifer is not going to be a happy chappy due to that. Let's ride on board with him and see what exactly happened. I get the feeling that Caleb might have been caught out by the track bearing to the right. Botifer taking the line and just coming into the braking zone, they seem to make contact. Was it a hardware issue for Lavender? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it certainly looked quite amateur there, just hip checking what looked like innocent traffic, and not good for Botifer at all. If I was him, I'd not be well pleased with that.
Well, race control aren't either. It's going to be a post-race review for Lavender for causing a collision. So we will get some news on that after the race is done. But this battle between Garrett Thompson and Adam Crane is really starting to heat up. Adam Crane is just in preservation mode at the moment, I think. He knows that he's already taken his pit stop. He knows that all he needs to do from here on in is hit his marks, but Garrett Thompson, as he runs slightly wide coming out of Oak Tree, could throw a spanner into those works, and we can't forget about Blake Neck either. He's currently running, last lap was 0.4 quicker than Crane, and Garrett Thompson was quicker than both of them.
Yeah, interesting, and as we've gone through this race, the track surface temperature has not cooled off in the slightest. It's kept getting hotter. We're reaching 50 degrees Celsius for a track temperature, so it is getting slick out there. From the lead, Olivier on the pit lane, so he is in his box now. The fueling has started. He's only going to need a couple seconds of fuel. Where can he come out? He's not going to come out ahead of Crane, but he still could come out ahead of Neck, Meyer, or Fazui. We'll see.
Well, he overshot his pit box, which has lost him some time. He's come out to very empty track. Tyson Meyer, the next car ahead of him. So now Blake Neck assumes 3rd position here. And it looks like he is on for a 2nd place finish when Garrett Thompson eventually decides to come in. Thompson's lost a bit of time, we can see, to Mr. Crane, who now assumes that race lead that we said was effective before.
Yep, indeed. So now the only GT class yet to pit is Garrett Thompson, who's there in 2nd place. 15 minutes to go. How much longer can Garrett Thompson go? Are we going to see him cough, splutter, and run out of fuel out on track?
That is the question. splash and dash in the final 10 minutes would probably cost him a bit more time than lifting and coasting all throughout the race, but you know, it would certainly be brave of him to try and attempt the race without taking a pit stop. It would be it's a bit more doable in the GS class, though. We still have 2 cars in that class that have yet to pit, and those are the 2nd and 3rd place runners, Justin Tipton and Andrew Caron. And Tipton is currently in the midst of some GT traffic with his teammate Brian Lockwood. Hayden Gober just making his way past them. We keep eyes on Garrett Thompson to see if he goes for the pits. He does not this time around, but we will be watching with bated breath. Caron running in 3rd place in GS is a very long way behind the 2 Racecraft esports drivers. I think if Justin Tipton ends up having to pit, he won't end up losing all that much. He might actually keep the position versus Caron.
Yeah, I'm trying to have a look. Shinya Mishimi obviously was in 3rd place not long ago. He's had a bad lap. He's lap 26. He lost 8 seconds out there to Shinya Mishimi. So Mishimi ought to be fueled to get to the end. He was in 3rd, but he's now back in 5th.
We're taking a look at a BOS replay once again. Racim Fazui has lost another position. We're not quite sure what's happened to him here. Coming down into turn 1. Oh, just looks like the rear tires caught. Just a little micro lock. And that sent him sailing straight off into the wall. So that promotes Luis Henriquez up into 6th place as Fazui re-enters the track. And Fazui hit that wall with the rear of his car quite hardly as well. So that's going to be some bad damage he's having to deal with all through the rest of this race. Fortunately,
now Henriquez is falling down the order. Dramas for Henriquez. He's off the track there, and that is definitely it's somewhere out on track.
Yeah, that's
bottom of the roller coaster.
It's on the run up to Oak Tree.
Before Oak Tree. So Henriquez has gone for a trip. Fazui is back into 6th place. Wind the tapes back, and has he done that by himself, or was he helped? I think this is going to be by himself. It is all by himself, and that is so early before the corner.
Wow. Whoa! Fazui almost collected him as well, having to take avoiding action there. Very strange incident. It just looked like he was trying to correct it, but the car just decided, yeah, all right, I'll go in the other direction, but I'll do it 3 times as much as you want me to. Meanwhile, Blake Neck catching up to the back of Garrett Thompson here. This could be an on-track pass for 2nd place in our GT class.
Yeah, Adam Crane's getting away a little bit in the lead. Garrett Thompson, I don't know if this is fuel concerns or his tyres have gone away from him in the hot track temperatures or something, but he's dropped back a couple of seconds now, and he's a cork in the bottle for Blake Neck here. So it's looking good for Crane, and it's looking questionable for Garrett Thompson. Fazui, a lot of damage on his car, has decided to park that thing. It's unfortunate for the driver who was our pole sitter, and it's just all gone downhill for him. Looking back at 2nd and 3rd though, and Neck very, very close, just needs a good exit here, needs to sit in the toe. It's Ferrari versus Ferrari, so if they've got similar rear wing settings, Neck should be good in a straight line.
Yeah, he should. The Ferrari is good in a straight line in terms of the GT3 class, but he did make a mistake on the exit of Oak Tree, sort of compromised his exit, so it won't be a pass here. Of course, Neck will keep in mind that Thompson hasn't pitted yet, and it's coming up on 10 minutes to go. It's starting to get to crunch time here for Garrett Thompson. Can he hold on without a stop in this race? He'd have to put on one heck of a fuel-saving run to do so, but it looks like he is going for the pits, and Blake Neck assumes 2nd place.
Yep, so that's a pit stop from everyone in the GT class now, and what you see on track is their real order now. Crane with a lead of 2.8 seconds with 5 laps to go. Blake Neck also fueled to get to the end, somewhat released now in 2nd place, and Tyson Meyer another 2 seconds down the road from there in 3rd place. Garrett Thompson's going to rejoin in 5th, I do believe.
Yeah, well, still a good run there for Garrett Thompson. He did make his way up to 4th before, but still in the top 5. it's going to be a profitable run for him after starting all the way back in 14th in our GT class. So Tyson Meyer has been through the runner a bit. He made his mistake. He lost his positions. And of course, he would really like to be up there in the lead of the race, but still, to be sitting in third after everything is said and done, it's still a good run for him, certainly better than what happened last round at Barber. Meanwhile, Hayden Gober and Jason Goddard fighting hard for 6th and 7th here. Hayden is one of the big gainers in our GT field. He's up 10 positions from where he started. And Jason Goddard still has a post-race review hanging over his head. So if he can get this position, he'd certainly be happy, but it might not end up meaning anything in the end.
Yeah, certainly going to be an interesting one here. These two guys are fighting, and they're just behind Garrett Thompson as well. Gober, the only driver, no, correct me, almost the only driver to have taken tyres behind the safety car. It's not looking like it's helping him a whole lot in his battle with Jason Gotter here. Only 10 laps, the difference on them there, but you know, certainly good run here. Gotter in 7th, where he started on the grid. Hayden Gober, big mover in the field so far.
Yeah, another big mover is Jack Anderek, who started back in 18th. He's up to 9th place at the moment and facing some pressure from Luis Henriquez, who has had one of the more adventurous races in this class. But Mr. Gotter continuing to pile on the pressure versus Hayden Gober. As we let's take another look at the GS class. Meanwhile, it looks like the lead has been extended for Brian Lockwood. Justin Tipton just falling back, and those two guys giving each other a good amount of space. Racecraft Esports have proven themselves to be the highlight team, I reckon, in the GS class, with some excellent finishes, 1-2s through a lot of the racing that we've had here so far. So they've managed to work out that Porsche Cayman very nicely. Andrew Caron will have been hoping for better from this one, but he still sits in a very strong 3rd, which is good to see, and it's certainly going to lift his spirits after that very heartbreaking end for him in the last round at Barber.
Yeah, and of course with Lockwood and Caron tied on 90 points coming into this race, Lockwood's going to take the championship lead as it is right now if you calculate those live numbers. At the lead of GT, though, Tyson Meyer, he's the fastest guy out on track. He's catching Blake Neck. Blake Neck is catching Adam Crane. So I guess get your cameras ready out in the stands. Here comes the move from Tyson Meyer down the inside of turn 1, and he's going to put his nose into 2nd place, and he is now just 1.7 seconds off the lead with, I think, 3 more laps to go.
Yeah, we've only got 6 minutes left in this race, and with a lap around Virginia International Raceway of about 1 minute and 48 seconds for our GT class cars, it is going to be 3 laps left when they cross the line. So Tyson Meyer on a huge turn of pace at the moment. We're setting a 47.972 on his last lap. Adam Crane's last lap was a 49.5. I think with that early pit stop, he's starting to run into trouble. He might have used a bit too much fuel over the middle stage of the race and is now in preservation mode.
We'll see. The lead you see on your screen there underneath 1 second for the first time. Adam Crane has the lead. Tyson Meyer absolutely flying. He has the fastest lap of the race. He's the fastest car out there right now. And what he may have missed on strategy through the safety car, he's more than made up for on track. When he's been on track, most of the time, except for that one incident, he's certainly been very quick in that. And Crane is off.
Oh, there we go. That's going to be the lead for Tyson Meyer. Adam Crane just making a mistake in the braking zone coming up to Hogpen, and he's all the way back there into 3rd. The race lead is gone for him. And I wonder, is he going to take this opportunity to take a pit stop, or is he going to stay out on track? Because Dominic Olivier we got to remember, still there in 4th place, and he could stand to gain a podium position out of this too. But Tyson Meyer back into the lead of the race, and with Blakenec in 2nd, it's a Geodesic Racing 1-2. Whoa, and there's Gober and Goddard side by side into Hogpen and through Roller Coaster. My goodness me. This is interesting lines we're seeing here. Hayden Gobe having to run slightly wide, flashing his headlights at him, and Robert Harris has come up right to the back of these guys. Harris could stand to gain a couple more positions out of this, which he would certainly welcome.
I missed the first part of that, but Gober is certainly not pleased whatsoever with how he might have been muscled out of the way through Roller Coaster, but he's back into 7th now. Got a bit wide through turn 1. Gober can't capitalise it. Robert Harris, I'm sure, would have seen that move, and now he's got these two in front of him, and there's traffic coming up as well.
Yes, indeed. Jason Goddard running a little bit wide there, and with this traffic, it could certainly make things difficult for these guys. Jason Goddard holding on. I mean, I went back and looked at the pass, and looks to me like it was fair game. Yes, there was a bit of contact into the braking zone, but not a huge amount. As they make their way through traffic now, it's the Geodesic Porsche of Chris Roberts. He's absolutely balking Hayden Gober and Robert Harris at the moment. It's given Jason Goddard a big advantage. Of course, no fault of Chris. That's just multi-class racing. And oh, Robert Harris really desperate to try and get by Hayden Gober here, but he's going to have to wait for another braking zone. More traffic now. This is Luke Wojciech just letting them go there on the right. But it looks to me like Jason Goddard has this secured for now.
Certainly seems it for the moment. Will be 2 more laps to go from here. Tyson Myers come across the line with time still to spare. So white flag is not out yet. And I think there'll maybe be 40 seconds or so left on the clock when we get that white flag.
Yeah, so it's going to be ultimately a 39-lap race. A little bit more traffic here for our race leaders. Alan Powell letting them through nicely in the S's. You get a good sense of the difference in speed between our classes. The battle still ongoing between Adam Crane and Dominic Olivier here for 3rd place as they come through the S's. And Adam Crane has really lost a lot of pace now, lost a lot of time versus Dominic Olivier. I think he is definitely in fuel-saving mode at the moment. Olivier took 0.5 of a second out of him on the last lap.
I mean, the numbers I see suggest that Crane took more fuel than Olivier did, but we'll see. We'll see, and they've got...
Maybe it's tyres.
Car. I think potentially maybe that would more be likely, but they've got car of Powell in front of them. They're not close enough to get by in this section, so this could certainly play into it. The traffic has been interesting around VIR.
Yeah, certainly has. And they're coming up on a little bit extra of it here. Alan Powell minding his own business down the front straight and getting absolutely monstered by 2 Mercedes. And this looks like Olivier might be seeing a move down the inside into turn 1. Is he going to go for the dive? White flag. There goes Olivier, but he's gone too deep. Just running wide. He does preserve the inside for the left-handers, though. Almost a bit of contact between the 2 Mercedes on the last lap. Crane just ahead. Olivier continues to push side by side, and he is through. It's a Geodesic Racing 1, 2, 3 in your GT class now.
Wow, great battle. Took a couple of corners there, but Dominic Olivier is through now into 3rd. Adam Crane back into 4th. It's now 25 seconds back to the next car in 5th, though. So if he keeps it on the track for this final lap, he'll get 4th place there.
Oh, Andrew Caron from 3rd. It's a repeat of last round at Barber. He makes a mistake on the last lap. What happened to him up at Oak Tree? Well, we'll take a quick look here. Coming through the dip, Caron now back to 4th as a result of all of that. Just catching the grass on the outside, and Man, once you try and turn, around comes the rear. And Andrew Carroll will be kicking himself. It's not over for the lead of the race, though. On the last lap, Blakeneck really pressuring Tyson Meyer here as they come through the final section of corners. It was an attempt, but it was not successful. Tyson Meyer holds on, and he puts the throttle down out of the final corner, passing Caron in the GS class car, and Tyson Meyer is going to take victory after what he must have thought was a lost win. Dominic Olivier coming across the line in third, Blakeneck in second. Geodesic Racing lock out the podium in your GT class. An excellent run. Our GS class cars, though, still have yet to see their checkered flag. We'll get you that. Aaron Ackles versus Jack Anderek for the top 10 in GT. This is not quite over yet. We see Henriquez there in the McLaren. He's managing to hold on. It doesn't look like Ackles is going to be able to get this done on Anderek. No passing to be done through this section.
No, not unless they got massively checked up. Henriquez off the circuit loses 2 positions in the final corner on the final lap. What on earth happened for Luis Henriquez there? That is no good whatsoever. He drops back down into 11th. Brian Lockwood, your leader in GS, just stayed ahead of your GT leaders. So when Meyer took the checkered flag, Lockwood still had almost a whole lap to go, but he's only got a couple corners now.
Indeed, he has. It's going to be a 38-lap race for our GS class machines. And that safety car really helping them to keep the distance up. So Brian Lockwood taking victory, an excellent victory, once again, backing up his run at Barber Motorsports Park, and Justin Tipton coming home in second to make it another Racecraft Esports 1-2. Marcus Deck holds on for third place. Andrew Caron would have been your third place finisher, but thanks to that mistake, he is going to have to settle for fourth. And of course, he crossed the line once the GT leaders had gotten by. So Marcus Deck under no pressure at all for that third place on the last lap. Here's a replay then of what happened to Luis Henriquez coming through Hogpen. We already know that the McLaren is, whoa, okay, so he just went a little bit too hot, too narrow, and caught the grass on the inside. That unsettled the car, and that's going to be very painful for Henriquez. A top 10 he says goodbye to.
Yeah, and he qualified pretty strongly as well in 5th place. So that's a unfortunate race that kind of came unraveled for him. Not as bad as some others, though. We'll take a look at the standings.
Yes, indeed. So that's a close victory there for Tyson Meyer versus Blakeneck and Dominic Olivier. That's locking out the podium for Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing. Adam Crane holds on for 4th place. Still an excellent run after starting from 9th. Garrett Thompson, meanwhile, 14th to 5th. It's another excellent run, finishing in the top 5. Jason Gotter comes home in 6th place, ahead of Robert Harris. Hayden Gober finishing in 8th place, with Jack Anderek and Aaron Ackles rounding out the top 10 thanks to a mistake from Luis Henriquez, who finishes in 11th place. And our GT field finishes rounded out by Elijah Mitchell and Mark Noski. Unfortunately, we would say goodbye to Zach Plummer, Racim Fazui, Johan Boysen, and Jesper Drlicka. Older Stepanovsky did not take the start. Now we go to our GS class results.
And there your winner is Brian Lockwood for the second race on the trot, and he moves into the championship lead in that class. His teammate Justin Tipton managed to make it to the end without a pit stop, but definitely took some benefit from slipstreaming his teammate on the way to that Racecraft 1-2. Marcus Deck, on the final couple of laps, gets onto the podium as Andrew Caron slips back into 4th and gets caught by the overall leaders to be scored a lap down there. Shinya Mishimi also put up a great challenge, ends up in 5th though. Giovanni Romano in 6th. Alan Powell gets 7th in the GS class. Luke Vodacek in 8th. Chris Roberts in 9th. Sam Holden 6 laps down there, but scored in 10th place. And then some other dramas there. John Botifer taken out and didn't look like his own fault at all. And David Browning a retirement in 12th.
Yeah, David Browning, of course, the car that ultimately was involved in the incident with Johan Boyson earlier, which brought out the safety car. Well, it's time to move on to post-race. We're going to go on a quick break here on SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network, but we will have driver interviews with your top 3 from both classes coming up right after this.
Fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God.
Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no, that's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
You're watching the Geodesic GoPro Championship Round 3 from Virginia International Raceway with SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network, and it is time for post-race driver interviews coming up right now. And you know what? This win for Tyson Meyer is certainly going to taste sweet. Welcome to the commentary box, Tyson, Quirkatized on Twitch. Man, this result for you rockets you back into the lead of the championship. Certainly a great turnaround from last round at Barber.
Yeah, what a race. This race had a little bit of everything. Quite a few mistakes from everybody in the top 5 and lots of fighting back and forth. And a lot of people doing some fuel-saving strats. And it was a little bit of everything. It was great.
Virginia International Raceway was always going to be a bit difficult in terms of traffic, especially through the fast S's. How were you finding it, and what kind of prep were you doing to cope with the GS class traffic through those twisties?
Well, I was pushing it a little early in the race, but I didn't want to push it too much, and then got a little more relaxed with the traffic the second half. Tried to wait as much as we could there. There was one pass, the hairpin there at the tree on Brian Lockwood that I made that I probably should have either fully committed a little more or waited. But it was tricky. There wasn't a whole lot of ways to prepare for it, with the exception of being in a full practice server with everybody, and just kind of using the practice to kind of gauge the speed difference.
Well, with that lead being taken in a very brave dive at turn 1 versus Blake Neck, I have to ask, team orders or no team orders?
Well, it's tough out there. My teammates are, they're my teammates, but on the track they're the enemy. So, no
All
team.
right. No team orders at Geodesic Racing. Man, well, either way, back into the lead of the championship for you. The standings were close, but with the likes of Zach Plummer retiring from this one, you're back into the championship lead, which certainly puts your series title defense on track.
Yeah, should be great. Can't wait to do the next race. I believe it should be Mid-Ohio.
Well, before we let you go, Mr. Meyer, anyone you'd like to thank? Shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you at Geodesic Racing?
Well, again, everybody at Geodesic that's putting this on behind the scenes, and you guys for broadcasting it. Everybody for showing up each week so far. It's been great. Some great battles. Asher Racing for providing me with these F64-USB wheel. My wife for dealing with me driving pretend race cars. And yeah, that's about it.
Very successful career of driving pretend race cars. Tyson Meyer, your race winner in the GT class. And now, David, we're going to go to the race winner of our GS class. You stood by with Racecraft Esports' Brian Lockwood.
Yeah, indeed. I had the pleasure of speaking to Brian under the same circumstances for the same reasons exactly 2 weeks ago. But this race was certainly quite a bit different for everyone and for you than Barber. The fuel situation was certainly different. We had our first safety car of the season so far. How did you read that? How did that make you race differently?
Oh wow, well the safety car really shook things up. We weren't ready for that at all. And the focus was, our plan was to just try and fuel save to make the end of the race. We were thinking, maybe we can't do it, but we'll just cover off our competition. And the safety car came, and we were just so focused on continuing to save fuel, that we didn't even think of doing a pit stop. And next thing we know, it's me, Justin, and Andrew left on the grid with the entire rest of the field with enough fuel to finish the race. So we got caught very off guard by that. But luckily, I got a really good restart, and I was able to get back up to P1, and Justin fuel saved a bit behind me, so we were able to take home the 1-2.
Was Virginia swamp weather out there tonight? Track temp started hot, kept getting hotter as you guys were getting towards the end of quite a long run on the tires. What was that like?
Well, my tires were a little bit shot. I think I was abusing them a little bit too much mid-race. But yeah, I was really struggling with 8 laps to go or so, like 10 to 6 laps. My rear was just stepping out all over the place, and Justin actually got back to me and started pressuring me. But yeah, it's just such a... VR is one of my favorite tracks, but it's a really tough track, and if you start driving even a little bit poorly, it really punishes you.
We saw quite a few incidents, quite a few people going off, a lot of spins out there. If you had to estimate the coefficient of friction of the grass around here, what number would you be giving it?
I wouldn't be giving it any number because I did not go ice skating today.
I'm
very
pleased to hear
proud
that.
of that.
Yeah, indeed. Well, 3 rounds down. With this win, you move from tied in points into the championship lead. How much focus are you going to be able to give the remaining races with the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup starting up in a couple of weeks?
Well, all I can say is hopefully enough. We're putting in tons of time preparing for the Super Cup, trying to put in time to prepare for this as well. But at the end of the day, you know, whatever happens, happens. So I'm hoping I'll still be in this position at the end of the season.
Well, your second win in a row in Geodesic GoPro Championship. Who helps Racecraft do it?
Oh, well, absolutely thanks to Justin. He did a bit of testing before the race and tweaked the setup to about where we needed it. And a huge thank you to Kane Halliburton, who I messaged 10 minutes before the race, hey, you around? Trying to get some help with fuel calculations. And he showed up, gave us a bunch of information, especially through the early stages, and kept us all up to date. So thanks to Kane and, of course, everybody else that makes it happen at Racecraft Esports.
There we go, thank you. We'll throw that one back over to you, Reese.
Yes, indeed. And we're going to have a chat to our second place finisher in the GT class, our third place finisher in the GT class. Blake Neck, unfortunately, is not joining us, but we do have Dominic Olivier in the box with us. Dominic, congratulations on the podium. And that was quite the result there, part of a podium lockout for Geodesic Racing. A good result.
Yeah, man, that was fun. Had to really have a big send on Adam in the last lap there, try and secure that last podium spot. It was fun. I struggled a little bit with the Mercedes against the Audis, and I think I had a little bit too much wing on the car. Didn't put enough practice in, but other than that, the safety car spiced things up, and it was fun.
Speaking of the safety car, we noticed that there were a few drivers that made a decision to pit under the safety car, but that was quite the interesting strategy turn, because it happened really early in the race, and you could take a pit on the safety car, but obviously it didn't benefit drivers later on, which is what helped you.
Yeah, it was kind of odd what the strategy was going to be at that point, because I didn't think that I could make it to the end at that point. Adam took the gamble. I didn't realize that he did. Blake and I were talking. Blake decided to, take the gamble and go in, and I think that was the right strategy. But I tried to make, at that point, I figured, you know what, I'm the only one that's going to stay out, so I may as well try and make the opposite strategy work. And I did. If I had maybe 2 more laps, I would have been able to pull it off maybe, but I caught up some backmarker GT4s again, so I had to pit 2 laps earlier.
How was the traffic? Because I asked the same question of Tyson Meyer. This track, especially in those fast S's, can cost faster class cars a lot of time.
Yeah, it's pretty significant. I mean, just in one section of the track, we'll lose about nearly 2 seconds. So it's pretty tough once you catch them going up the hill. Unless you really take a risk, it's no fun. You having to be patient behind them. It's not so bad on the last section of the track though. But yeah, it's pretty tough with the GT4s.
Well, with this podium result, Aaron Ackles finishing down the order in position 10 and Zach Plummer retiring, that elevates you to second place in the championship standings. So despite not showing the first round at Interlagos, you've put your championship campaign off to a good start here in the first few rounds.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that. After missing the first round, I thought, I'd just continue and have some fun. I thought maybe, Tyson would run away with it, but him DNFing last race put me in the mix, and looks like it should be a fun championship battle. And it's great to see that Robert Harris is back. He's always good competition, and Racine is quite the force to reckon with. So it should be a good battle for the rest of the season if those guys all, continue to come out and do their best.
Before we let you go, Dominic, who would you like to thank from your position here in third place on the podium?
As usual, my team, Geodesic Racing, for, putting this series on. It's a fun series. You guys for, broadcasting it and commentating. Always a great job. Yeah, that's about it.
Dominic Olivier, your third place finisher in the GT class. Throwing it back to you, David. You stood by with P2 in GS.
Well, it seems like I have the pleasure of all of the racecraft interviews today, and Justin, you're the highest placed finisher who didn't take a pit stop in class. We've already heard a little bit from Brian about his worries and concerns about fuel strategy. Everyone could do it in this car at Barber. VIR looked like it was a little bit thirstier, though.
Yeah, it was going to be really close without the yellow flag, and then that helped me save enough to actually make it. And even then, I didn't have enough fuel for another lap.
You certainly had some challenges around the front of the field there, Shinya Mishimi and Andrew Caron and others, and you managed to last a little bit longer than last race.
Yeah, you mean I didn't spin off the track this time?
It's kind of what I was referring to, yes.
Yeah, and I ran a more conservative race this time, just to make sure I finished, which is, what I should have done the previous week.
We also saw traffic be pretty interesting. There's a couple of places around here where, it's kind of one line, but almost flat out coming through the S's and some other places around the circuit here. You were looking in your mirrors often for GT3 cars, and did you have any problems with?
Oh yeah, looking around a lot. Thankfully the yellow flag made it, so we got a little less GT3 action. But I know on the restart I was side by side in the uphill S's, which is just nerve-wracking as can be. And there were a couple of times they took the pass that was theirs to make, but I wasn't exactly thinking it was the opportune time. But that's multi-class racing. There's always a little bit of dice in your in where you end up.
Mid-Ohio next round, is that a good track for you?
It's not good or bad. It'll be interesting. The GT3s on that track, oh man, it's gonna be very interesting. I think track position will rule the day with all the GT3s lapping us every couple laps.
Well, congratulations on your podium finish, making it a bit of a 1-2 lockout there for Racecraft. We've already heard some thanks from Brian, but is there anything else that you've got to get out to the people on the iRacing Esports Network?
Just, thanks to Racecraft for letting me be on the team and helping me get up to speed in this car. It's great. And, I have to thank Brian. Big shout out for letting me draft him. You guys didn't know the fuel stuff in race, but if Brian doesn't let me draft him for a couple laps, I'm gonna have to fuel save enough that I probably don't get P2. So definitely a shout out there to my teammate.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming and chatting with us.
Justin Tipton there, second place in GS and leading home a 1-2 finish for Racecraft Esports. We do have some news on our driver of the day, sponsored by Toe King. We've actually come up with 3 drivers of the day. Adam Crane, Justin Tipton, and Marcus Deck have all been determined as drivers of the day by ourselves at SimSpeed and the administrators of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. Each one of those guys is going to be getting $25 cash as a result of their great drives. Adam Crane for making it from 9th to 4th and making the early pit stop strategy work. Justin Tipton for not pitting at all during the race, making the fuel strategy work fantastically. And Marcus Deck making it 15 positions up from his starting position, 31st to 16th. That is a great turnaround from his first 2 rounds in this championship. So that's fantastic. All of those guys definitely had something to be proud of today, David.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, obviously, it was a great story for our winners in both classes, but also there were some other drivers out there who made the best of a bad situation or, really picked it up during the race or, otherwise outperformed our expectations and their expectations.
Certainly did, and we're looking forward to seeing more of the same next round at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. We go to Canada for round 4 of the Geodesic GoPro Championship, and it is going to be at this time on this day in just a fortnight's time. We look forward to seeing you there, and we thank you for joining us for this third round of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. Make sure to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. Hit that little bell so you get a notification whenever there is a live stream on. iRacing's best broadcasters bringing you some of the best online sim racing in the entire world. Chuck us a subscribe over at SimSpeed TV as well. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. We want to thank Toe King for sponsoring the driver of the day. We want to thank GoPro for their support of this championship and providing prizes for the winning drivers at the very end of it. You've been watching the Geodesic GoPro Championship. My name is Reese Gardner, David Haynes joining me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy on cameras. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, it's bye for now, but not forever.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top. Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?